The environment is one of, if not the most, important thing that has affected both agrarian and modern civilizations alike. While humans may believe that we have control over everything out there, unfortunately, the environment still maintains power over the human race by dictating where and when we are allowed to succeed within civilizations, until we are severely impacted by nature and other phenomena, and then they fail. One example of this can be found in the Inca of Peru. The Inca were permitted by the environment to construct their society, thanks to them existing in a period of global warming. This warming allowed for the clearing of trees where the Inca's base was located, in Cusco, Peru. As the tree line increased up the mountainside, the Inca were able to terrace mountains, which created the most productive and effective places to grow crops that were needed to feed their peoples. Glacial ice allowed easy irrigation to crops while the rest of the area was dry, which made it possible for the Inca to even exist, all thanks to the environment.
People migrated from the Eurasia continent down into North America through Alaska and down into South America. The Incan Empire lies along the coast of South America. Their empire has a wide range and change in longitude and little change in latitude. Because of the way the world rotates, climate is similar along the axis of latitude instead of longitude. This is seen at the equator, which is universally agreed to be a warm belt along a line of latitude on our planet's surface. Anyway, because the Incan Empire is stretched vertically and not horizontally, every crop grown in their empire had to adapt to the new climate as it moved along the line of longitude, so the integration and spread of crops in the empire took much longer than in Europe, where most directional change occurred on lines of latitude. Therefore, access to and mass production of food was very limited, and it was difficult for the Incas to support a large population. Because of this, they had less time to develop technology than the Spaniards, who had guns, germs, and steel on their side upon their arrival in South America.
Due to its climate and geography, the Incan Empire had a limited amount of crops. It had very steep mountains which didn't allow for many plants to grow. The main three crops it had were maize, quinoa, and potatoes. Potatoes allowed them to grow lots of food for all the soldiers around. But they did not have a variety of crops, so they had to focus a lot on those three crops. And they weren't able to produce much technology because they had to focus so much on agriculture in the regions where they could, since it was a very small empire that ran lengthwise instead of latitudinal. I don't know.
The geographical location of the Incan Empire, the only animal they were able to domesticate, well, mammal, was the llama. It wasn't very good for agricultural purposes, and it could only carry a little bit of weight. It's primarily used for meat. So due to the fact that it couldn't help in agriculture, such as pulling a plow, that severely limited the Incan technology.
So eventually the Spanish decided to come over to South America to colonize, looking for a number of resources, including gold. And there were two major conquistadors that we know about, Cortez and Pizarro. Pizarro he went to South America and went to the Inca Empire, and he landed in Brazil and then traveled across South America. When he landed, he met local natives from the area, and he and his men, he had about 180 men, actually brought disease with them, such as smallpox, and that spread through the native lands and through the native people ahead of them. So by the time they reached the Inca Empire, there was already like a big epidemic, and many people were really sick. And so Pizarro's plan was to take over the Inca Empire, and how he did this was he invited the king to a feast, and there which was in the town, like the big city in the big open center, and the king brought with him 5,000 unarmed men, and Pizarro then took the king hostage, and all 187 of his men slaughtered all 5,000 of the unarmed men with no losses, and they held him captive until the king ordered all his gold to be delivered to Pizarro. Then Pizarro baptized him and made him Christian, because that was another thing. They were going on a mission, but then they ended up just killing him, and just took the money and basically ended the Inca Empire, but because of that, and so a large part of that was the technology of the guns. Just with they had never seen that before, and so that was a really new technology. Really scared them, and also the diseases definitely made a difference because they had weakened the army. The army of the Inca Empire was about 80,000 strong, but by the time they got there, it was much weaker, and the like I said, the king only had 5,000 unarmed men with him at the time when
The
they.
Incans were also able to domesticate the guinea pig, which was primarily used for war purposes.
Spain's environment made it possible for them to become an international powerhouse and command territories around the world due to their geography. Their location allowed them to be much closer to military technology development, including the creation of rifles and the advancement of them, as well as the building of a successful and powerful navy that was designed to travel anywhere that was ever needed. The steel sword and iron-tipped lance were the death of the Inca in Peru, with the Spanish under the control of the conquistador Francisco Pizarro. Both weapons could be used by men on foot as well as men on horseback. Iron and steel, the most destructive elements of the Spaniards' weapons, were made available to them thanks to the Fertile Crescent, which is relatively close to Europe, which allowed for the harvesting of steel and the development of swords that began 7,000 years prior to the Spanish invasion of the Inca. This experience with steel, as well as the domestication of horses and the disease that the Spanish brought with them from the Old World, left the Inca helpless in their fight for existence and their freedom.
The Incans were also able to domesticate the guinea pig, which was primarily used for war purposes.